You can't talk about 1980s R&B music and not mention the name Morris Day. Along with his group The Time, Morris released hit songs such as 777-9311, Get It Up, and Jungle Love. Standing on stage checking himself out in the mirror held by his valet Jerome, Morris brought his own version of cool to the music scene. With his confident swagger and his stylish suits, Morris presented himself as a unique figure that was as great as the music he and his band played. Morris Day was born December 13, 1956 in Springfield, Illinois, to Richard and LaVon Day. LaVon married Richard, who was nicknamed Dickie, when she was only 16 years old. They had a daughter, Sandy, who was 18 months older than Morris. By the time Morris was born, the couple had already gotten divorced. After Morris's birth, Dickie hooked up with another woman, leaving his old family in the projects. He then moved to Decatur, Illinois, which was about 40 miles away from Springfield. While Morris saw his father a couple of times in different summers, that was pretty much the extent of him having his father in his life. When Morris was a kid, he used to use his mom's pots and pans, as well as her couch, as drums to help him make beats. When Morris was 4, he hit the couch so hard one time that he put a big hole in the arm of it. After that happened, his mom bought him a toy drum set so that he could beat on that instead. Around the same time, his mother got married again to a man named Jesse Hamner Sr. With Jesse, LaVon had another son, Jesse Jr., in 1960. Jesse Sr. was bad news, as he was a heavy drinker as well as a gambler. He also physically abused Morris's mom. Because of that, the cops were always coming to their house to break up their fights. Jesse also physically abused young Morris, making his life miserable. Whenever LaVon wasn't around, Jesse would call Morris a punk and start slapping him around. Eventually, Jesse began to get even more violent, and LaVon decided to leave him. In 1964, when Morris was 7, LaVon packed up everything and secretly left Springfield in the middle of the night in order to escape from Jesse Sr. When she left Illinois, the plan was for them to head out to California. But first, they decided to make what was supposed to be a stopover in Minneapolis. However, what was supposed to be a stopover turned into a permanent situation because that's where they wound up living. At first, they lived with Regina, who was LaVon's cousin. In an unusual situation, LaVon and Regina had married brothers, as Regina's husband Spike was Dickie's brother. Spike worked at a gas station that was owned by Joe Buckhalter. Buckhalter also owned a car detailing shop, a small office complex, and a hood supermarket. Along with those, though, he also had his hand in the wrong side of the law, which consisted of carjacking, drugs, and prostitution. Regina's husband Spike was messing around with Joe's wife, and at the same time, Joe was messing around with Morris's mom, who she would eventually marry. Minneapolis was an overwhelmingly white city with a very small black population. With that being the case, the local radio stations played music according to that demographic. While they would play R&B and jazz music, they also would play songs by artists such as Elton John and the Rolling Stones. Morris reflected that the diversity of the music he grew up hearing would later influence his music. Meanwhile, Morris's interest in drumming was growing, and he was drawn to the band Tower of Power. While he knew that their lead singer Lenny Williams was great, Morris paid special attention to their drummer David Garibaldi. He liked how his style of playing was different from everybody else's. Morris began listening to all of Tower and Power's records. He'd play along to the songs, getting better every time he practiced them. Morris was aware of his strengths and weaknesses in life at a young age. As a freckle-faced boy, he didn't think he was handsome or cool. He also wasn't a good student in school or even a good athlete. He knew early on that music was what was going to get him somewhere. In spite of how much drama was going on in his childhood, music was always the one constant in Morris's life, and the one thing that he could hold on to and count on. One day when he was attending North High School, Morris was trying to hook up with this girl. When he talked to her, she told him about a music show that would be happening at a different school called Central High School. Morris decided he wanted to see what was happening over there, and he decided to check out the show. When he did, it would be a decision that would change his life forever, because it would be the first time that he would see Prince. Prince was unusual looking when Morris first saw him, as he had a big afro. He was wearing a black turtleneck sweater, some bell-bottom pants, and paint girl mittens with the fingers cut out of them. At the time, Prince led his own band called Grand Central. Morris was impressed by the group as they played a lot of funk music, and Prince was the obvious star. At the time, the group's drummer was Chaz Smith, who just happened to be Prince's cousin. With that in mind, Morris knew that even if he was better than Chaz, blood was thicker than water. As a result, even though he wanted to join the band, Morris kept that information to himself. While he was at the event, Morris met Andre Anderson. Anderson would later become known as Andre Simone. He and Morris came to find out that they both liked music and smoking weed, so they began to hang out. One day, they were over at Morris's house, smoking some weed. Meanwhile, Andre noticed that Morris had a drum kit set up. He didn't know that Morris even played the drums, so Andre asked him to play something. Morris proceeded to play a couple of Tower of Power songs, which blew Andre away. In fact, he was so impressed, he asked Morris to come by the band's rehearsal. Furthermore, he told Morris that they were having problems with their current drummer Chaz. That was all that Morris needed to hear. So about a week later, he did go by one of the rehearsals, and everybody there was friendly when he first got there except for you-know-who, Prince. He was cool and aloof to Morris. The band proceeded to play for a couple of hours. Almost every guy in the band was impressed with Morris, and they congratulated him on how well he played, with one exception, Prince. The next day, Morris asked Andre, "What's up with that?" Andre said, "Means you got the gig. Otherwise, you'd hear he wasn't happy." We're going to take a time out from our story to ask you to like, subscribe, share, comment, hit that notification bell, and repeat when it comes to our videos. Now, back to our story. Morris would go on to play with the band for the next 2 years, which he truly enjoyed. During this time, Prince eventually let his guard down, and he and Morris would hang out from time to time. Morris even found out that for a while, Prince had lived down the street from him. This was before Prince went to live with his father. A little over 6 months after he did that, because Prince broke his father's rule about bringing girls in the house, Prince's father kicked him out of the house. At that point, Prince moved into Andre Simone's basement. This was great for the band because they were already using Andre's basement to rehearse. Prince now living there gave them that much more time to work on their music. About that same time, Morris's mom bought him a 4-track recorder that Prince liked to use to lay out his ideas. While normally that wasn't a problem and then it was okay, it stopped being okay when Prince would come over at 3 o'clock in the morning wanting to use the track recorder so he could record a song. For a while, Morris's mom served as both Morris's and Prince's manager. She was also paying for studio time out of her own pocket to allow them to cut demos. She would also fly to New York to meet with music executives while trying to get Morris and Prince a record deal. However, on the side of what she was doing, Prince was trying to arrange his own deal, just for him. He hooked up with Owen Husney, and he gave Husney a demo tape. However, the tape wasn't just Prince performing a song, it was the entire Grand Central group. Husney then began looking into getting Prince a record deal out in Los Angeles. Eventually, Warner Brothers showed some interest, and the label was led to believe that it was Prince alone on the tape, and that he was playing all the instruments. Prince was trying to get signed, so he never told them any differently. Eventually, Warner Brothers did sign Prince, and just like that, he left the Grand Central Band to go solo. After Prince left, Grand Central changed their name to Champagne and tried to press on as a group. Soon, though, they got hit with another blow when Andre Simone decided to leave the group to join Prince's band. After that, Grand Central / Champaign disbanded, and Morris was dejected. By that point, he'd already dropped out of high school after his junior year in 1975. When Morris was 18, his first child, daughter Tiana, was born. While Morris wanted to take care of his daughter, he didn't know how to do it, as he didn't have any other marketable skills besides music. To try and help him find some direction, his mother decided that she and Morris should move to Gaithersburg, Maryland. They could stay with a friend of hers, and that would also put her closer to New York to keep trying to get Morris a record deal. On Morris's end, the best he could do was get odd jobs here and there. He was also getting better at drumming, but he could only get sporadic gigs that didn't pay a lot of money. Eventually, he'd get a job at a Montgomery Ward's department store, working in a small rental car area within the store. One day while he was at work, the radio was playing. Then suddenly, Morris heard a song that sounded familiar. It caught his attention, and he turned toward the radio to focus his full attention on it. That was Prince, and he was singing the song called Soft and Wet. Immediately, Morris told a co-worker that was his boy singing the song on the radio. Morris also told the guy that he used to be a drummer in a band that he and Prince were in together. "Sure you did, Morris," was the response he got. Then came this dagger from the same guy. "If you're such a solid drummer, what are you doing here renting out in Palace?" Morris didn't have an answer to that question. After he got off work that day, Morris went and bought a copy of Prince's album. As he listened to the entire LP, his ear told him that Prince had refined the sound that the group Grand Central had been playing. While the funk was still there, Prince had added some pop influence to it too. Morris knew that Prince always wanted to expand beyond just being in the R&B market, and he wanted to aim his music at the widest audience he could reach. For Prince, it was a simple matter of math. Black people made up about 12% of the population in the United States. So in order for Prince to reach the remaining 88%, he'd have to cross over. Morris seeing his friend's success made him look at his own life with disappointment. He saw himself as a loser, a guy who wore a Montgomery Ward's blazer and rented cars. Home was no better, as he was living in raggedy apartments or motels. Again, trying to help Morris get to where he wanted to be, his mother suggested they move to San Jose, California. Her cousin Regina had moved there, and they could stay with her. Once they got to California, Morris couldn't stand it. Part of his hatred for it came from what he had to do to earn money. He ran through a series of different jobs. He was a salesman at a men's clothing store. Then he worked on the construction cleanup crew. There, he had to use a sledgehammer to break up stucco, then pick it up and haul it off to the landfill. He did that job for about a month, or at least until his back pleaded for him to quit. Then he worked as a security guard. After all these jobs, Morris began to take a look at his life, and he saw that he was getting nowhere fast. He also felt like if he was ever going to make something of himself, it would be through music. He then decided that he'd move back to Minneapolis to make that happen. Once he did that, he moved in with his sister Sandy. Needing to support himself as well as his daughter, he had to get some gigs quickly. Meanwhile, Prince was rehearsing in the city with a new band that he'd formed. After Morris reconnected with Andre Simone, Simone told him that he should come by one of the rehearsals, and then he quickly added that Prince would love to see him. Morris accepted the invitation. Then in his mind, he began to think of how he can get in position to join Prince's band. The current drummer, Bobby Z, was somebody that Morris felt that he was better than. However, he also knew that having a salt and pepper look to his band was important to Prince. That was because Prince felt that the image was something that helped facilitate crossing over. A week later, Morris showed up at rehearsal, walking in with Andre. When he and Prince saw each other, there was no outward reaction. However, Morris thought he saw a slight smile on Prince's face. Having said that, Prince did seem genuinely glad to see him. Later, at a break in the rehearsal, Prince began walking toward Morris, and Morris just knew that Prince was going to ask him to sit in and play the drums. However, he had a completely different question for Morris. Prince asked him if he knew how to work a video camera. What? Morris found himself responding, I can learn in a hurry. And with that short conversation, Morris Day became Prince's new cameraman slash videographer. Instead of playing the drums, he was now up close and personal with Prince at every show, capturing his every move on video. This is important to Prince because he liked to watch videos of himself. He studied them and checked out how his dance moves and his guitar gestures looked to make sure they were on point. That way, he always ensured he was at the top of his game. While recording Prince wasn't what Morris wanted to be doing, at least he was back on the music scene. Along with that, being so close to Prince all the time allowed Prince to begin asking Morris for his honest opinions about everything. He did so because he felt that Morris would always speak his mind. Meanwhile, Prince was becoming a huge success, going from opening for Rick James to headlining his own tour. At the same time, he had to work on and complete his third album. While he was doing so, apparently Prince felt that Morris had paid enough dues, as he'd been a cameraman for him for 2 years without complaining. With that in mind, Prince let Morris cut some tracks in the studio. While working on those songs, Morris was determined to come up with music that he knew Prince would like. Right off the bat, Morris was successful. When he played one track for Prince, afterwards, Prince told Morris that he wanted the song for himself. At that point, he gave Morris two options. Option number one, Prince would give Morris $10,000 for the song. Or option number two, Morris could give Prince the song, but in return, Prince would help him get a record deal. Morris picked option number two. The track that Morris created was turned into the track Party Up. The song was included on Prince's Dirty Mind album. Since Prince owned the song, he felt okay to put on his album, produced, arranged, composed, and performed by Prince. No mention of Morris Day was included in the credits. Of course Morris noticed this, but he kept any anger he felt about the situation to himself. He still had hopes of becoming Prince's drummer, but he also now had the dream of becoming a solo artist to look forward to. Meanwhile, he went back out on the road, still operating as Prince's cameraman. After the success of his Dirty Mind album, Prince was asked to open for the Rolling Stones. An incident would happen there that would bring Prince and Morris closer together. We're going to end part one right here. Do you think Morris's mom did the right thing by constantly making these adjustments to her life and moving from one side of the country to the other side to try to facilitate a career for her son? Let us know what you think in the comments. Thank you all for checking out our video. We appreciate you spending time with us. Be sure and check out some of our other videos too, and also come back for part 2 of our Morris Day story. Thanks again, and see you on the part 2 video.